This page was created to teach Black history. Unfortunately, the American educational system was designed to exclude our real historical account, so we are here to dismantle it. It's time to enlighten those of us who have been kept in the dark. I too was a Black man who didn't know enough about our own history, so I began to dig deeper and do my own research. I want people of all races and cultures to join together to learn our history as one. Here, I will share all of my findings. Please share and support Teaching Black History.
The story of Margaret Garner. Margaret Garner was born a house slave in Kentucky and the daughter of the plantation owner John Gaines. Margaret married one of her fellow slaves, Robert Garner, in 1849, and their first child, Thomas, was born early in 1850. Later, she had 3 other children. On January 28, 1856, Robert and a pregnant Margaret, together with family members, escaped and fled to Cincinnati, Ohio, along with several other enslaved families. Robert had stolen his master's horses and sleigh, along with his gun. 17 people were reported to have been in their party. In the coldest winter in 60 years, the Ohio River had frozen. The group crossed the ice just west of Covington, Kentucky at daybreak and escaped, then divided to avoid detection. Robert and Margaret and their 4 children, with Robert's father Simon and his wife Mary, made their way to a former slave, Margaret's uncle Joe Kite, who lived along Mill Creek below Cincinnati. The other 9 slaves in their party reached safe houses in Cincinnati and eventually escaped via the Underground Railroad to Canada. Kite went to abolitionist Levy Coffin for advice on how to get the group to safety. Coffin agreed to help them escape the city and told Kite to take the Garner group further west of the city, where many free blacks lived, and wait until night. Slave catchers and U.S. Marshals found the Garners barricaded inside Kite's house before he returned. They surrounded the property, then stormed the house. Robert Garner fired several shots and wounded at least 1 deputy marshal. Margaret killed her 2-year-old daughter with a butcher knife rather than see the child return to slavery. She had wounded her other children, preparing to kill them and herself when she was subdued by the posse. The entire group was taken to jail. The subsequent trial lasted for 4 weeks. It was the longest and most complicated case of its kind. A typical fugitive slave hearing would have lasted less than a day. Over 1,000 people turned out each day to watch the proceedings, lining the streets outside the courthouse. 500 men were deputized to maintain order in the town. On the closing day of the trial, the anti-slavery activist Lucy Stone took the stand to defend her earlier conversations with Margaret. She spoke about the interracial sexual relationship that underlay part of the case. Margaret Garner's actions were driven by her master's abuse and the well-known abuse slaves faced nationwide. Women were known to practice infanticide to alleviate the burden of slavery from their children. However, in Garner's case, her children faced even more opposition due to their being mulattoes. Mulattoes were seen as a threat as well as a disgrace among the plantation and white families because the birth of mulatto children highlighted infidelity within the slave-owning families. They reminded the family of a perceived sin and were often beaten or sold. Garner underwent drastic measures to protect her child not only from the cruelty of the institution of slavery, but from the double threat due to the child's mulatto status. Margaret Garner was not immediately tried for murder, but was forced to return to slave state along with Robert and their youngest child. On March 11, 1856, the steamboat Henry Louis, on which the Garners were being transported, began to sink after colliding with another boat. Margaret Garner and her baby daughter were thrown overboard during the collision. The baby drowned. It was reported that Margaret was happy that her baby had died and that she tried to drown herself. She and Robert were kept in Arkansas only a short time before being sent to Gaines' family friends in New Orleans as a household servant. The Garners then disappeared from sight. In 1870, a reporter from the Cincinnati Chronicle found Robert Garner and gathered more about his life. Robert and Margaret Garner had worked in New Orleans and in 1857 were sold to Judge Dwight Bohan for plantation labor at Tennessee Land in Mississippi. Margaret died in 1858 of thyroid fever in an epidemic in the valley. Before she died, Margaret urged him to never marry again in slavery, but to live in hope of freedom.